everybody. Welcome back to Strong Witness Story Session. We do this on Tuesdays at 6. And I used to say we do it every Tuesday, but we've been skipping some weeks, which has been okay because I think that we still have powerful stories to share every time that we come back on here. So I thank you all that will be watching now live, whether it be on Facebook or on YouTube, and those that will watch at a later time. I say I'm biased. I think every time we get on, it's a powerful storytelling session. Tonight, there are two women that are going to come and share their stories. Now, we know October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but just because October is over doesn't mean that we stop talking about the larger issues. So I have two women, the two storytellers tonight are going to be telling their story about being breast cancer survivors. And I think the word survivor is powerful. That means that they have been through something and they have a story to share and to tell, to bring education and awareness and to help other people. So I would love for you to share the video with others. I would love for you to tag other people. I would love for you to be intentional about tagging somebody who may be dealing with the issue of breast cancer now, or have somebody who has a family member that is going through, but to be very intentional about sharing and connecting with other people. And this is what we do. Strong Witness is a storytelling platform, if you don't know about it. So we share stories. Now, some stories are lighter than others. Some stories are heavy, but we share stories to help build community and connect people with other people. A lot of times we go through things and we don't know how to speak on it. We don't know how to share it, or we go through things and we think we're the only ones dealing with it. So that's the purpose and the intent of connecting with Strong Witness. I am going to show our intro video with Strong Witness before I bring our two speakers up. So I want you to take some time to listen. Decided to create Strong Witness because I realize the power that people have in sharing their stories. The vision that we have and the lines that we have, if we share our stories, we'll come together closer.
Prison was such a part of our lives. We had accepted the fact that prison was our reality.
Oh, you can imagine the shock that I had when at the age of 14, I found out I was pregnant.
I was living out my passion and my dreams by working with young people to help turn their life around. And now here it is, everything that I work for is literally being taken away from me.
I looked my granny in the eye and I told her, Granny, I promise you, whatever I can do, I'm going to break this cycle.
We just have to continuously move forward.
God used that situation where I would never say it was a mistake. It was unplanned, but it was never a mistake.
We'll connect off experiences and we'll realize that I can connect with emotion even though I don't know that person specifically. All right, so I think that last line, even though it was me that said it, but I think it's good. We can connect off emotions even though we don't know the person specifically. So I'm going to bring our two storytellers up. So we're going to introduce the two of them, and then we're going to allow one the space to share the story. So first, we do have Renisha to come up and also Serena. So I wanted to introduce you two as well. You both are in the DFW area, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then if you could too, just tell our viewing audience where you're from or anything you want to do as an intro before we get into the storytelling.
Oh, I guess I'll start. I'll be starting. I'll be the first one speaking. I'm Renisha Campbell. I'm originally from Chicago. I'm currently living in a DFW area. I made it to Dallas after having my stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis. I'll talk about that more, but I started traveling as a nurse and I kind of ended up here and I love it. So I don't think I'm going back to Chicago. I'm currently working as a nurse. Specifically, I'm doing hospice nursing, which is totally different than what a lot of people are used to. It's even a fluke how I, started doing hospice nursing, and it had to deal with having a cancer diagnosis and just being faced with death and, having to deal with that and how I learn and all those different things. But I started doing it. I love it. I absolutely enjoy it. And that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. And Miss Serena, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. My name is Serena Branch. I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I retired from the military after 26 years in the Army and eventually moved to Dallas, Texas, worked at Microsoft for a while, and now I'm actually in school for computer networking.
Oh, that's awesome. You guys are awesome already. So I'm excited about these stories. And I thank you. I thank you for Corinne that connected us. I just, she connected me about, I told her I wanted to hear stories from breast cancer survivors. I had no idea we're all currently located in the DFW area. So when I talked to you on the phone, I was like, man, that was great. So I'm going to move out the way. And Renisha, we're going to allow you to share your story.
All right. I guess it's on me. So after being contacted by Latoya and she asked me to share my story, I thought about just how I would explain it. Um, and I've told this story over and over again. However, now it's a little different because it's 9 years after my original diagnosis, which was in 2013. Um, and now I can look back and really digest exactly what I was going through. So, what I really want to focus on is being a young woman diagnosed with breast cancer, 33 years old, no children, no family, not in a relationship. Um, I thought I was doing everything right. I was in a PhD program at the time in nursing and working on HIV and AIDS, something I was very passionate about. And I just thought my life was on track. However, after being diagnosed, um, I'll tell you how I found it. I kind of found the lump in my breast just on a fluke. I was doing something in bed and I don't know, I ran across my breast, my left breast, and I felt something. And then I went back, I felt it again, and it felt like a lump. I went to my nurse practitioner. She was telling me, don't worry about it. I was too young. It's probably fibrocystic lumps. I also went to a gynecologist, specialist. She also told me, and then I completely insisted that they check and they do something about it. So I will tell everyone whenever, and it doesn't have to do with breast cancer, but if you just feeling something that's going on in your body and you know it's not right, insist on someone listening to you. The best advocate you can be is for yourself. And you're the best doctor for yourself, too, at the end of the day. You live with yourself, you know what's going on. No one can tell you anything about what's happening in your body. So I insisted, and finally they did a mammogram. And I believe they also did a biopsy. And I was in a PhD program in California at UCSF, the University of California, San Francisco. So I was leaving to go home for the summer back to Chicago. And I did the test. I went to Chicago. Of course, I get a call back from the nurse practitioner. Long story short, she wants me to come back in. No, I can't. I'm back at home. I did everything at Mercy Hospital with getting another biopsy, just the whole nine. So I'm at this point taking in that I have breast cancer, right? How can I have breast cancer for all people? I'm doing everything right. I'm trying to live the best life, but I wasn't. I wasn't doing everything right. Actually, for many years, I hadn't been doing things right. I feel like my body was screaming at me to listen, to take care of myself, to nurture myself more. So after getting breast cancer, I did a lot of research. I'm like a scientist at heart. I love research. So I did a lot of research from the science, really scientific stuff, to what individuals would call quirky, or, that's that, I don't know, just other, that's non-Christian. But I was really open to everything. Um, the first thing that I think I felt was, why is God taking everything away from me? You know, I'm not going to be a woman anymore. They're taking my breasts. I may have to have my ovaries taken or my uterus taken. Like I felt real hollow. And in that time, I had to have control. I had to have control of something. So part of my treatment, um, I insisted like that they keep my left nipple. So I had a mastectomy. They removed the left breast, but they kept the left nipple, which is typically not done. But I've fought for that. And in a way, now thinking about it, it wasn't the smartest thing to fight for, really. It isn't. It wasn't. Because a year after I completed my chemotherapy, I was diagnosed again. So my first diagnosis in 2013 was like stage 2 or 3. I completed chemotherapy in 2014, May of 2014. May of 2015, I found lumps in my collar area and also on my neck right here. And so I went to get it checked out. And of course, cancer was back. And for anyone who knows about just staging cancer, if anything moves outside of the breast, it's considered stage 4. So it's in my lymph nodes. It was in my neck. I had some swollen lymph nodes on my chest wall. Um, and then the next treatment that I didn't get chemotherapy again because it was stage 4. And with stage 4, they like, there's nothing that we can really do. I'm sorry. It's all about just giving you a quality of life, giving you a quality of life at this point. So at 35, I'm talking about just having a quality of life. That was something just now, even when I'm thinking about it, something that was still very hard to swallow, to say the least. But by the grace and mercy of our creator, my personality just isn't one that I'm just gonna roll over and give up. No, it's not that. So I figured, if I'm dying in 2 years, because that's what I thought, stage 4, maybe 2 years. Most people I knew with stage 4 died within 2 years. So I'm like, hey, I got to do something that I absolutely love and I'm passionate about. So I decided to travel with nursing. But just to kind of backtrack a little bit, now when I got the original diagnosis, there were a lot of beautiful things that happened. I had a great support system. I had friends coming out the net, just out of everywhere that was providing anything that I needed: yoga, nutrition, Reiki, clearing these chakras. Like it was great. It was absolutely great. Um, the person I was dating at the time made me feel so pretty because I did not feel pretty. I felt like the most alien looking thing on the planet. So that was good. It was just, there were some good things that came out. And I could see just how massive my support system was. People out of nowhere, I haven't spoken to them in years. They were showing up. I was getting prayers. It was great. And I know that, even people who didn't talk to me was sending prayers and putting good energy out. And all of that kept me going. All of it kept me going. All right. So I would be remiss if I left that part out. So kind of fast forwarding to, getting stage 4 and trying to figure out my life, right? So there were a couple of things that I knew to do, like try to eat as clean as possible. The type of breast cancer that I had was, or have, let me not say had, because there's still swollen lymph nodes. I still got one that I can feel. And until I can feel nothing, then I would not say I'm completely cancer free. The type of cancer is estrogen and progesterone positive. So it's hormone positive. And there are 2 different types. You have the kind that, like I have, which is it's off your hormones. So the amount, if you have high levels of estrogen, then cancer can grow off that. And it's not just breast cancer, colon cancer, cervical cancer, any kind of reproductive situation, all of that can, be caused off high levels of estrogen and also progesterone. Prior to me getting cancer, I had a lot of issues with um, female reproductive issues, endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, uh, fibroids. And I thought I was doing the right thing with the way I was treating it, and treating it with birth control pills, different progesterone, like synthetic medications, which did not do my body well at all. It didn't, it contributed to high levels of estrogen. So I was just putting my life at risk and didn't know, but thought I was doing the right thing. But now I know better, right? And that's why I'm sharing this story with you all, so you all can also know too. So, and I'll always tell people, if you have any kind of reproductive issues, definitely have them check on your breast, especially if you're having these issues and you're under 30. Don't let anyone say, oh, you have to be 40 to have a mammogram. Absolutely not. Nope. My left breast was enlarged for, I don't know, 6 years before I actually got, breast cancer. And that, I learned, is a sign of cancer, and beginning signs of breast cancer. Um, and had I, forced someone to actually go in and listen, then I had to know. But it's okay. It's okay, because I'm here to still talk about it. So no L's, only wins. Only wins. Okay. Um, so like just dealing with feeling like an empty shell. So I was diagnosed with this the second time, the stage 4, and the treatment with that was to take my ovaries. And really and truly, they should have taken my ovaries when I had the mastectomy. I don't think there would have been a second diagnosis, but they didn't. My doctor told me, I asked him about it, and he was like, nah, we'll cross that bridge pretty much if there is an issue. And that doesn't make sense. That's not preventative medicine. But I mean, we're dealing with Western medicine, and that's how they deal with it. You got to have an actual problem before they really try to fix it, and that's unfortunate, because a lot of things could have been prevented. But still, it's all good, because guess what? We still here having this conversation, and it's still all good, right? So is life. Life will throw you, obstacles and everything, and it's just, how do you deal with it? Um, and that's just how I rode with it. How am I going to deal with this? I'm still young. I feel young anyway. I'm single. How do I navigate dating? Not having ovaries. Yeah, let's talk about sexuality and breast cancer. Not having ovaries completely did a number on my body, including chemotherapy, hot flashes. Guys, yeah, I'm about to take it there. So hold on to your seats, people. My doctors broke my vagina. Yes. And I wrote them a letter stating that they broke it and they need to fix it. And just because I have cancer did not mean I wanted a broken vagina. So my brain, and it wasn't connected. It wasn't connected. I had just started a new relationship. It needed to work. That was important to me. As a young person with cancer, that was important to me. I can't have babies no more, or at least I thought that was the case. Um, but you weren't gonna take it all. Like, that needed to work. So I think when I write a book, that letter will be like the forward of my book, because it was really that serious. You broke it, now fix it. And that took, going through a few different medications, taking some stuff off, trying something different, but definitely me communicating with my doctors about what the heck is going on. And that was very, very, very important. I always laugh when I think about that. Uh, Yeah, because part of that letter was saying, hey, you I know you're typically dealing with 80-year-olds or something like that, but I'm not even 40 yet, and this ain't cool. You're gonna have to fix it. We're gonna have to fix that. So I guess that would kind of lead into dating. Um, I was really afraid, very, very, very afraid to tell folks. I just knew it would kind of run people away. But that really hasn't been a case at all. Even though I'm single now, but it's that part is still all good. But no, it's never really ran anyone away. Um, I've also had to work on my confidence, my self-image. Really struggled with that because everything isn't aligned. Things look different. Things work differently now. And being comfortable just in my skin and who I am and all of that, right? So um, it's been quite a journey. I think one of the reasons why I'm still here is because my will to live and my faith. My faith is unbreakable. My faith in a higher creator, my faith in miracles, my faith in myself, my faith in just things are going to work itself out. My faith that in my life, I don't have any losses. Things have been tremendously just hell sometimes. Like, how is this going to happen? You know, how am I going to continue to live? How am I going to do whatever? But I've managed. I've managed. And I think most of that is on faith and being open minded to various modalities, you know, of treatment, not just chemotherapy and radiation, but there are vitamin supplements that you can take and at really high levels, like vitamin C, different things like that, that can help keep you healthy. Changing your diet would do a tremendous amount. I mean, I shouldn't have been listening to my doctors. I got a good friend who I call a spirit lady who's been in my ear forever, way before cancer, talking about, hey, Riri, you got to get that diet together, you know, and really, that's like the basics, really the basics, but all of that is a struggle. I still struggle with it today. Um, I struggle with, you know, my whole goal is to figure out where's this cancer coming from? Because it didn't just show up out of nowhere. Um, I think my environment played a major role in it. Being in Chicago in about 2008, 2009, a special task force was formed specifically for women of color, Black and brown women, because we were getting breast cancer at alarming rates, much larger than the national rate now. Black women and brown women we're already higher on a national level. But Chicago specifically was the numbers were out of control. I remember being at the beginning, those meetings, and just to think a few years down the road, I was going to be part of that statistic. Not only myself, but a lot of girlfriends that I know from the city, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. So I feel like my environment played a major role. And that's just not what I feel, is what I know, because there was a task force already formed trying to figure out what the heck was going on with researching and everything. I feel like the amount of stress that I was under was just, it was tremendous during that time, and it broke me. It truly broke me, and my body responded to it. Because I left Chicago, you know, I was in California when I found the cancer, right? I was in there. I was in California when I found the cancer. I was in my PhD program. So I wasn't in Chicago anymore, but I still had a lot of stress, a, a whole lot of stress. And most importantly, I don't think I loved myself enough. Mm-mm. Doing my research, finding out like just issues with the breast. every part of your body. You can go look and see, hey, I got issues with my eyes, whatever. What does this mean? But issues with the breast deal with nurturing and really nurturing yourself. So yeah, I was doing things right. I'm a go-getter. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna make things happen. That's what I'm used to doing. I'm the oldest of six. I've taken care of my siblings. I've taken care of their kids, and still did my thing, you know. And it was a lot. It's a lot. But at that, I wasn't truly loving me, and I'm still learning how to do that. Still learning how to make myself present. Still learning how to care for me the best way I possibly can. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey. It's been one, but hey, it's my life. The whole purpose of me going into hospice. Oh, I said I would bring that up. Uh, it was really scary thinking about death and thinking about dying in 2 years. So once I got to Texas, the way I learn is very hands on. So I decided to go into hospice. I needed to see what death was like. I needed to see what this process was. And I did just that. I found out that it's a beautiful process. It's just as beautiful as bringing life into this world, you know, given the same respect and dignity on the opposite end is worth it. It's something that we don't talk about much in the Black community. Um, in regards to just letting it be a very loving thing and like happening in a home, the whole family is around. I've learned a lot. I've had patients who have been on hospice with breast cancer, and I've done their death pronouncements. And every death I can say that I've gone into for breast cancer, I am like on edge. I'm like probably thinking about myself being in that bed, just whatever. But I will give you this one beautiful story because I'm sure my time is almost up. But there was a woman recently who I did a death pronouncement, young woman, 37 years old, was diagnosed 2 years ago, just moved to Dallas, only here for 6 months. She was living her best life. She brought the car she wanted. You know, she wasn't even all the way packed yet, unpacked. But she ended up passing away. She had stage 4. It went to her liver, and very quickly, probably within a month, things kind of transitioned for her. Her mom and her brother was there, and the energy in a room was so beautiful. It was so calming. It was something that I could never imagine. Like if I wanted to feel bad, there was no way I could feel bad in that room. And the mom said to me, I'm like, you all are just doing great. And the mom said, well, my baby right there, that's just a shell. That ain't my baby's, she's back home with her father. That's just a shell. That's nothing. And it's, it really put it in perspective. It is a shell. It is nothing. And what I'm most concerned about is, am I living my best life? Even I struggle with not having children. I banked my eggs. I had purchased sperm. I mean, I was ready to go. Just needed like an oven to pop it in because I was too afraid to do it myself. Because I didn't want to, you have to put estrogen in your body to have a baby, and I didn't want to do that. So, but being okay with that as a young person, and just recently, like the whole child thing, I've decided that what is a legacy? My legacy is within my name. My legacy is how I've touched lives and, what I've left behind with those individuals. That's legacy. I don't necessarily have to have a child to, have a legacy, And I think about all the heavy hitters that I know from over the centuries in history. You know about them. You don't necessarily hear about the daughter down the line, 5 years down the line or 5 generations down the line. No, you still hear about that one person. So I'm like, my name will be my legacy. I don't have to worry about children. I don't have to worry about that. I touch plenty of lives. That's what I do. I, I'm a teacher. I'm all that, and that's what I love. So with me doing that, that's my legacy. And I don't have to be upset or, you know, mad about it anymore. Now it's just like, hey, get myself together so I can find that partner, right? But no, that's not what's really important. um, Latoya.
No, that's good. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know I do have some questions or some things that you said that I do want to come back to. I want to give Serena space to share her story first. Um, Specifically, though, I'm gonna give you like a teaser of the question I want to ask. Like, I do want to come back to that when you said I had to rebuild, learn to love yourself and that confidence and that self-image. But I do want to come back to that at the end. I'm also saying this, so I won't forget. So if I tell you and everybody else will help me remember too. But I do want to bring Serena up, and then we'll just do like a full question and answer at the end. Is that okay with you, Renisha? Okay.
Yes.
So Serena, I'm gonna bring you up. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Your cousins had some questions for you too, but hopefully they'll stay on and we're gonna share. But thank you, and you stay there. I'm gonna pull you back up when Serena gets done sharing hers in a few moments. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So here we go. Hey, Serena, I'm gonna move out the way. I'm gonna give you the space to share. Okay.
Okay. Wow, that was really a tough act to follow. Renisha, that was really great. But it was so interesting what you said also, because I also was 33 years old when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I was also told the same thing, which was, you're too young to be diagnosed with cancer. Now, of course, now as I think about it, at the time I was like, really, that's great, because I don't want to have cancer. So I accepted that. But now it's sort of asinine to say that, because kids are born with cancer. Anyone can have cancer. You do not have to be a certain age or a certain color or a certain sex or live in a certain country, anything. Anyone can have it. But what I learned from that is something that my PCM told me, which has gone a long way and actually helped me through my recovery process, which was that don't allow anyone to tell you about your body. You know your body more than anyone else knows your body. And that is so true and so profound. And as I went through various treatment to go through remission, to get to remission, I learned that. And I learned it the hard way, because not only did I have cancer once, but like Renisha, I had it twice also. The first time when I detected the cancer, I was actually taking a shower and I noticed a knot. And the knot was probably just about maybe a half an inch below my clavicle. So I was like, oh, maybe I bumped into something or something like that. So when I went to the doctor and the doctor said, yeah, this can't be it and you're too young, I accepted that. First of all, I did not want to be at 33 years of age diagnosed with cancer anyway. And just like her, I thought I was doing everything right. I was probably 16 years at the time in the military, 4 more years close to retiring. And just being diagnosed with cancer changed my entire life. Where at first I was planning to retire in 20 years, I decided to stay in longer because I also wanted those additional 5 years. Because what they say is after 5 years, that once you're cured, or at least you go into remission, that 5 years, if you could get through 5 years, more than likely the likelihood of you having cancer again is slim to none. Well, I got right at that 5 years and was diagnosed with cancer again. So just imagine my devastation. Because the first time when I had it, the first thing that came in my mind at 33 years of age with a child was that I'm getting ready to die. Getting ready to die. I didn't think of anything else other than the fact that I was getting ready to die. My mother had died at 45 years old of sarcoidosis, and I figured at 33 that I was going to die. I figured I had missed a bullet once when I had brain surgery and got through that, but I figured, oh, this cancer, oh, I'm destined. I felt like maybe with Patti LaBelle, where everyone in her family was had died of diabetes or something like that. I felt like with my mom that I was following her pattern. So at that point, when the doctor told me that, That's the only thing that came in my mind was, wow, I'm going to die. And interestingly, though, the second time that I was diagnosed with cancer, it was a totally different thought process. The doctor was more devastated than I was devastated. And I was really frustrated because they had delayed telling me for about an hour. It was a radiologist who kept hiding and avoiding me to keep from telling me. But when he finally told me, the first thing I asked him was, do I have a fighting chance? That's all I want to know is, do I want to have a fighting chance? And I say that for a reason, because during the first experience with cancer, I learned four things that I took with me. And I take this and regardless of what's going on, I always think about this when it comes to my health. No one can tell me anything about my body that I don't know. The second thing that I learned was that you have to collaborate with your doctor. You have to form an alliance with your doctor, and you all have to have very, very good communication. The third thing was that I know I had to stay positive no matter what. No matter how badly it got, I had to always stay ahead of the illness. I never gave up. It was no more thinking that I was going to die, but whether or not I had a fighting chance. Because the second time when they found it, it was in my armpit. It was deep in my armpit, and they accidentally found it that time. And if the radiologist wasn't really pressing on to figure out what was going on, I probably wouldn't be here today. And the fourth thing, though, was just always keeping that door open, to do better, to always check on my health, to always eat better, to exercise, to do a lot of other things. And so let me just back it up a little bit and just talk a little bit about my experience, though, because when I first got cancer the first time, it was a very horrific experience for me. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I talked about, when I said it's very important um, to know about your body, and it's also very important to have a relationship with the doctor. When I first received chemo, um, I was really having an adverse reaction to the medication. I was having some severe side effects, and I went to my doctor and I told him that it felt like an ant was crawling. That ants were crawling all over my body. That I was being attacked. That I was physically being attacked by these ants and just feel like they were biting all over me. And the doctor said, The oncologist said, That's unusual. Um, I've never heard of that before," and just blew me off. Well, probably after the fourth or fifth treatment, the nurse noticed that my blood pressure was highly elevated and told the doctor, "Hey, something is wrong. This patient is getting ready to go into a panic attack uh, prior to getting the medication." And so the doctor decided that week not to put me on that medication, not to give me my treatment. And then he also decided to put me on a synthetic drug that was a man-made drug that was different than what he was giving me. And interestingly, when he changed those drugs, my medication, all of those problems that I was having slowly discontinued. All of them discontinued. Unfortunately, to this day, though, I still have some of those problems as a side effect of the chemo. I still have the ants crawling. Or the feelings that those ants are crawling and are biting all over me, but not as frequently now. I can control it a little bit with medication. But the difference between the first time when I had those problems and the second time is my oncologist sat down with me. The second oncologist sat down with me on my second diagnosis. And we talked about some of the illnesses some of the complications that I had, like the problems that I had with every pink part of my body, meaning my hands, my tongue, my scalp, my bottom of my foot, my vaginal area, my anus area, anything that was pink, I had microscopic cuts. And so we talked about that, and my doctor gave me something to help that. We talked about the ants crawling all over my body. And so she made sure she gave me some medication that would counter that. We also talk about the fact that I also had a sexually transmitted disease that carried that only flared up when I took chemo. It didn't do it any other time. We talked about that, and the doctor prescribed medication for me so that I would not flare up. These are things that we talked about so that my experience the first time was nowhere near as traumatic. And I would say traumatic.
We can't hear you, Serena. I think that if you got a phone call, I may have knocked it out for a moment. You may have to, well, two things. One, you may have to log out and come back in if the phone call knocked it out. But then also see if you can get some lighting, like either the light in your car or somewhere around you too. That would help so we can see you as well. Yeah, that helps. But I still can't hear you. So you may wanna log out and then log back in. That light helps. That light definitely helps. But log out and come back in, and then I'll just bring Renisha up and make sure you come back because you are saying some great stuff. But I'm gonna remove you for a second to come back and then pick up where you're at, okay? And then Renisha too. Um, I guess if you can unmute yourself. But let's go back to because she was really saying some good stuff, and I hope she comes back on in a second. But
He was.
yeah, but even what she's like dealing with that part, like the medical things that I think, as she's talking, as you both are talking, I know that maybe I can just speak for myself a lot, what seems like some people may not think about when it comes to having a diagnosis and all that a survivor has gone through in the process. Um, and even afterwards, she's talking about, okay, I was on that medication, but even afterwards, after these effects, I know she's coming back now. And another question I'm going to put a pin in because I want to come back to this
Yeah.
is how
There are a
this
lot of
process.
long-term effects that,
Mhm.
any cancer survivor, it's a lot. Like hair thinning, my hair is different now, the way it grows back, and heart palpitations from a medication that the chemotherapy that I took, one of them, and it's a very rare medication that you can only take maybe once or twice in your life, period. So they really save it. They save it because it can give you major heart damage. Like a lot of these medications, a lot of treatments lead to other things. Even with your body just being addicted to some of these medications, like pain, opioids, and different things like that.
Okay.
So, and I've struggled with that.
Yeah.
It's been difficult because you're on medications for 10 years. Like now it's been 10 years, taking stuff almost daily. It's a lot. It's a
Mhm.
lot.
Okay.
So it does have a lot of long-term effects. That's why I'm like, I just try my best to try to be as natural as possible, especially now.
Okay. Thank you
But
for
go ahead,
sharing
Miss
that.
Lady, you getting down. Miss Serena.
All right, we'll let you pick up where you're at, okay, Renisha? I mean, Serena.
Yes, Serena, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And so yeah, I you know, like I said, the experience was like just totally different. Um, I I I remember even when I would whenever after the chemo treatment, um, I could even tolerate the smell of food. It got so bad, and sometimes even now when I think about it, I can cry about it sometimes because it was so bad that when when my family would cook, I would have to sleep out on the porch because I could not tolerate the smell of food. I could not eat any food. I cried because I could not eat some of my favorite food, like just hamburger and fries, which were my favorite. I couldn't even eat that. Not only was it the taste, it tastes like medicine. All the cuts that were in my tongue, it was very painful for me. And so, all of those things that I talked to my doctor about, he was like, okay. He really didn't listen. It was like one of those things where I was talking to him, but I wasn't being heard. And so I tell you, the second time around with the oncologist, she was an Air Force colonel, a colonel in the Air Force, who was treating me versus a civilian doctor the first time. She actually listened to me and heard what I said, and based upon whatever my complaints or my concerns were, she made sure she treated me accordingly, treated my body accordingly. And so the experience really was almost, if you will, which is odd to say, empowering. I felt empowered the first time, believe it or not, because I felt educated. I felt like I had a fighting chance. I felt like I was in collaboration with my doctor, and I felt like I had, not only that, the worst thing that I did the first time that I didn't do the second time was that I didn't disclose to my family members the pain that I was going through because I didn't want them to suffer. It was enough that my daughter would sometimes sit next to me in the tub as I soaked in the tub because of all the pain that I was experiencing. She would sit there with me, and she was more than about 12 years of age, and she would just sit there with me while I would sit and soak in a tub for 5 hours or so, just trying to soothe some of the itching and the pain that I was feeling. But the second time around, a lot of that stuff I didn't feel I was able to eat. I was able to do a lot of things that I didn't do. The first time, I didn't even go to work for a year, not for a whole year. And I was active duty and I didn't go to work. It was just that bad. But the second time, they kept me at work. And so, it was good and bad. But but I actually lived through it. And my whole mind changed, to be quite honest with you, where I thought of cancer as a big bad bully, an angry monster that was here to just take me away from my family and my loved ones, to something that we truly don't understand. And that if we understand it and we know how to treat it and we identify it early enough, that we can survive. I went from thinking that I could not survive something to something where I am now a survivor and a fighter. And I will say on both occasions, though, I never gave up. No matter what, that's one thing that I continue to be. And I continue to be positive. And I know that you have to remain positive at all times. You have to stay ahead of it. You can't let it get ahead of you. And it's always great to have someone to communicate with. It's always, is those things that are non-negotiable.
Hmm. I That's good. Now that's the part too I wanted to talk about when you said have somebody to communicate with, and I'm gonna ask Renisha too in a second, because even as you two are talking, and Serena, before you went out, well, while you were out, I said this, like you were saying a lot of things that I could just say for myself, I never even thought that somebody would have to experience like the fullness of it, right? So we think, okay, breast cancer, okay, we're just dealing with this issue in this part of the body, but how it affects you mentally and physically, and how as you were speaking, had to learn how to advocate for yourself in ways that you probably never thought you had to advocate for yourself, or how you
Yes.
thought you were in the clear and you got this plan, okay, this 5 year plan, and right when I reach 5 years, here it comes again. Tell me how mental health, because I'm a therapist, right? So I'm bringing the mental health part. Tell me how even cancer survivors, those going through the process, and how it affects your mental health and the type of help support that you received or that's needed for the next person that may be listening to this that needs that type of support as well. So, what do you recommend to somebody in the process or even a survivor in dealing with mental health?
It's interesting that you would ask that question. And although there's so many people out there who have survived cancer, who have been diagnosed with cancer, we still all have this rare thought, this unusual thought that we're the only ones who who's actually dealing with this and that we're alone. Or sometimes that we feel like no one else will understand the pain that we're going through, along with also the embarrassment that, having to lose all your hair. I mean, I was completely hairless, and then all the cuts, my fingernails had fallen off, my toenails fell off. I mean, you go through a lot, and often you feel at sometimes that you're not being heard. it has a significant toll on you mentally, to the point that sometimes you feel like giving up. You feel like the pain is too great, especially because one of the things they tell you with chemo, one of the side effects when they sit down and tell you, they say is death. So you like, you mean I'm trying to survive something where the side effect of the first thing they tell you, the side effect of chemo is death? You're like, oh my God.
Mm.
And it feels like you are in a position where it's a no-win situation. And then to also be in a situation where now you have to decide whether or not you want to have a mastectomy. Like with Renisha, we both had had a mastectomy also, you know. And then for it to come back, and then you're like, you mean I allowed them to take off this breast and then it came back on the same side? Are you for real? So it's an up and down roller coaster the whole time. So it's imperative that you
Mhm.
talk to someone. And sometimes the best person to talk to is other people who also have the cancer, but you can never forget about your loved ones also. And that's where I said, and I mentioned it, I think we cut off when I said that was the biggest. I think that was my biggest problem there is I thought I was protecting them, but I was really hurting them because
Okay.
they are also experiencing that same pain that you were feeling, and feeling very helpless in a lot of ways.
That's a good point. I'm glad that you said that. So what you're saying is when you were going through, I don't know, Phoenicia, you can jump in too. You thought that you were shielding them and saying, okay, well, let me walk around maybe with a smile and keep certain things away. But
Mm-hmm.
what your family members needed was, no, I want to hear and I want to walk along the journey
Yes.
with you. Renisha,
Yes,
you
they
feel
wanted to
the same
hear.
way?
I would agree with Serena, but I'll say this. I thought, because the second time around, I didn't tell anyone for a whole year. And more so than, I definitely tried to protect them, but I had to protect myself too. I had to protect, because when you tell someone, if they fall out, if they break up, then you kind of taking care of them, and you're taking on their energy too. So if you're not in a really good place, a solid place, um, then you won't be able to, really communicate, and you don't want to break down. You don't want to lose your faith. You don't want to lose the hope that you've built up. Um, so, and just to kind of piggyback on what Serena was saying in regards to talking to people, I had a therapist. I've seen a therapist for over 10 years. I had tapped back into my therapist, and started doing sessions with her after the stage 4. Um, Not only that, but other different things I was doing to keep my mind and spirit and emotions and everything right, like energy work, Reiki, chakra stuff, praying, just getting on my knees and just being faithful, and thanking God for giving me another day. Meditation, all of that helped to keep my mind right and continues to keep my mind right.
What and Serena, I wasn't cutting you off. It's just that there was some feedback, that's why I hit mute. But if you have something to say, I can unmute you in a second. But there you go, I'll unmute you. But um what type of support does somebody who is going through the process need? So now I want to flip it. So if a family member, a loved one, a friend knows of somebody has shared the diagnosis with them, what type of support is helpful? Because sometimes one thing I've noticed, regardless of what the story is and people coming on here sharing, sometimes people feel bad for us, so they stay away. And then what we needed though was to ask the questions, to come around, to check in. You know what I mean? So sometimes people do think they're doing great, but I don't want to bring anything up. I don't want to make it awkward, but it was like, nah, we needed you here in this space. So what would you say is something helpful for somebody going through the process? What type of support is needed?
I personally, I believe that it's. I think I'm on mute. Okay, I believe that greatly depend on the individual, because some people, just like with me, all the talking, I don't need it. I just need you to just sit next to me. That's all. I am fine with you just sitting there because I'm a very active person. I like to use my hands and do everything, and just, I don't want to talk about those things unless I have to talk about them. But then you have some people who like to get educated. Like for instance, Renisha, she probably was someone who would probably like to educate herself on that, on those things. Whereas I'm totally different. So it greatly depends on the individual. And like Renisha said, sometimes you want to be shielded away from some people who may break down. If you're the type that's going to break down, then no, I don't need you in my space because it's already a delicate space as it is. A religious person, if I think it again, if you're very religious, I think it'd be great to have your priest. If you're more logical, it's great to have the counselor, your family member. It greatly depends on the individual. I must say that it greatly depends on the individual, but it's nothing like talking to someone who's already had the counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm just messing with the screen to see. What we I have another question too. I want to make sure that we get to when it goes back to Renisha. You mentioned this when this comes for a survivor. You saying being intentional, addressing those issues of rebuilding confidence and then self-image. What goes into that? What's needed? Is that still a part of the mental health process? Or what? How can you speak to
Absolutely.
another survivor who was in that space of, I don't feel confident, or I don't feel pretty, or I don't feel loved?
It definitely is. It's a process, and with a process is it's not really a end to it, right?
Mhm.
It's something where you're constantly evolving. So yeah, you're gonna go through it. And I'll just tell someone like it will get better. Yes, you will be bald head, but guess what? Or you may lose hair. For everything that I, will find or can look at negative, I would tell somebody find something to be grateful for within that. Yeah, my body image is all messed up right now, but I'm working on getting it fixed. Or, you know, I'm trying to just turn within and love what God has given me and my brand, what's new right now. This is my new normal. How do I, adjust to my new normal and be okay with that?
Mhm.
So it's definitely a mental health thing all the time. I'm always an advocate for therapy. If people feel like that therapy can help them out, it is amazing. My therapist, um, one of the things she helped in regards for building support, an actual support system. When I was going through everything, she made me be vulnerable because I'm used to being in charge. I'm used to taking care of everything. She made me be vulnerable and it was like, contact your friends, ask them. Like, I had a grid kind of set up for my chemotherapy dates. And for every date, I had two people to come with me. And that grid filled up.
Mhm.
Anything that I wanted, I had to be open enough and vulnerable enough to ask for it. And it was given like tenfold, to the point like the grid, it got to the point I was calling people like, no, I really don't need you to come. Like, this is something I'm just gonna do. I had allergic reactions to one of the medications. And I mean, it was immediate. It was
Mhm.
anaphylactic shock. My lungs started to
Oh
close
wow.
up, and immediately they have to give you an antidote. The nurse is sitting right there, like with the antidote, like, hey, just in case you die, you know. So
Oh
with
wow.
that, and it's seriously, it was just like that. The nurse is sitting there. Immediately, I start panicking because my lungs are closing up. I'm going into anaphylactic shock. So when I got on that one, start doing that chemo, I think it was such a roller coaster. I just wanted to get my food. I knew I was gonna have this allergic reaction and have her get an antidote. I'm falling asleep because she has to give me all this medication, and I just wanted to eat, go to sleep, and maybe someone pick me up. Like, you didn't necessarily have to be there. Because then I felt like I had to kind of entertain and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and so I love that. Well, first of all, I love the vulnerability piece too. I know Brene Brown talks a lot about that, but I think in life, I always say vulnerability is not one of those things that we arrive to. We have to learn how to be vulnerable in every season and situations. And with that, and I think that's why I love this story sharing space anyway, because Renisha, what you're saying you're needed is different than what Serena's like, listen, I just need you to be present sometimes and I just know that you're there, but you don't have to say anything. Don't feel like you gotta come with the right words as much as I just like your presence. And Renisha, you were like, listen, here's a spreadsheet. and here's some dates, and I need y'all to be here and to be around. But I think that that's the beauty of it, that is not cookie cutter, but get what you need in this process. And maybe somebody else may have something else that they need to help them in this journey. You know what I mean? And that's why I appreciate you both sharing this story, because you've helped me see things that I didn't even think about, that, someone with the diagnosis of cancer, um, and even a survivor of cancer had to go through or deal with, and the weight that may be on them, but also how, mental health is very important too. What about like support groups for survivors? Is there anything local in the DFW area? Maybe somebody's watching who wants to find a support group. Maybe you both are going to start a support group. Maybe I just put that out there and spoke
No,
that
maybe
into existence.
that part. I'm not familiar with any support groups. I haven't did any support groups really for breast cancer, to be honest with you.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
But Glenda, is it Glenda? Gosh, I know there's a national one. Oh gosh.
Maybe
I'll
you can
have
put
to
that
yeah,
in the comments
there's
I'll
later
look
too.
it up.
Okay.
I know there's quite a few resources out there. I haven't taken advantage of any of those. I have actually advised other people to go. I've looked the information up and gave it to other people. They also have. I want to mention also the wigs that they have. Also, there's
Oh
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
organizations out there that give you wigs. I will warn you though, like you said, with the hot flashes, plenty of time I threw the wig off my head.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
And your scalp is very sensitive also anyway, but
Yeah.
there's I will say there's a lot of resources out there, a lot.
I
there,
need
there
my
really
wig.
are. With the military though, we had so much of the military though that I really didn't even have to tap into the civilian resources, but there's a lot out there.
Mhm. I wonder if there's one place, and maybe if you two can think of it, or if you know it, maybe you can go back and put it in the comments too, like later, where somebody can go with all resources like under one umbrella. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes,
for
I
cancer.
had something like,
You
I
have
try
that?
to pull it up.
Okay.
I did, because they gave me something like
I
that. I
want
did. I had
to
a list of it,
Glenda.
Mhm.
of a list of just resources for cancer survivors. So I could pull it. I could try to find it and post it or send it
Yeah,
to you.
I think that would be extremely helpful.
Sorry, I didn't
Um,
have that.
no, you're okay. And then before we go, anything else you guys want to share before we jump off? I know Serena, what you said too. I know I just asked the question, just talk right over you. But one more thing, with Serena, you mentioned it especially. I think you both mentioned it, but the importance of collaborating with your doctor. And then we hear that a lot too, especially when it comes to people of color. Renisha, I know you talked about the statistics, right? But not necessarily like we don't have to just be like, well, I'm going to get it too or accept it. But some things what the doctor tells us, one of you mentioned it, it may not always be accurate, right? So it's the
Right.
idea of,
Right.
listen, I want to be in relationship. If I don't know, please explain it to me. Like, what I mean? Help me understand it. Second opinion.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because some things may not be accurate, but you also want to be involved and learn how to advocate for yourself.
And you know what,
Yeah, I
I think
believe.
that's also where mental health plays a good role too, because if you're not, maybe you can get with your counselor and get your counselor to help you and or teach you with
Mhm.
those skills to be able to communicate a little bit better, or even advocate for you, you know, because that was one of the biggest things at the first time. I think that's why my first experience was so difficult, was that I was somewhat young. 33 is not just, it's not young, but it's not old either. But when I say young, as far as, I was quite healthy. And so that was really my first experience, other than like I had brain surgery. But other than that, that was my first experience with something that was chronic. And
Mhm.
cancer in itself is chronic, you just be in remission. And so
Mhm.
to have to deal with that and be able to boldly say to the doctor, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, and say it correctly without offending that doctor. And also knowing that you have patient advocacy, that you also have the right to fire your doctor, that you
Okay.
also have the
Absolutely.
right to ask for mental health, so that you can cope with those things. A lot
Mhm.
of stuff that sometimes old doctors don't sit down and talk to. My doctor even talked about mental health with me and said,
Good.
hey, let's refer you here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Whereas my first doctor didn't talk about any of those things with me. And so that's why I say the second process was totally different, where I felt empowered. And whereas the first one, I just felt hopeless. And like I was about, even though I had my family members, they were awesome, and my loved ones, they were awesome. They were there supporting me. And I think if it wasn't for them, I probably would have gotten beat down, because they were the ones that were advocating for me. But I learned after that to advocate for myself, and not
Mhm.
only advocate for myself, I started advocating for other people also.
Yeah,
So
that's good. That's good.
I think I will just throw on that just know, even though they're a doctor, don't have the white coat, experience where that white coat you think is the expert. No, the expert is you. You're the expert.
the
You're
patient
talking
is the
about your
expert.
own
Yes.
body. This is your body that we're talking about. You're the expert. You're in there and you're there to collaborate with them
Mhm.
so to get you right. But you're the main one at the wheel. So they can throw out educated guesses all the time, scientific guesses, because Serena and I was both told the same thing, you're too young. And that was just an educated guess. And they're touching you and everything, but no, you need to take this a step further and be okay with it. Be
Mhm.
just be totally fine with it. Um, and just I told myself one thing that I'll stand on for now and for the rest of my life. Nobody can tell me what I know. You
Mhm.
know what you know. You know what you know. And I'm not talking about no ego, pride. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about no, that intention, that discernment that God gave you. The one thing that we tend to ignore often, but when you think about it, like, dag, if I had to just listen to myself, that part of that, that discernment that's going to tell you if it's right or not, and it's different when it's ego and pride filled, but
Mhm.
that discernment that's in the gut, you know.
This I want to show you both is a comment from Deaconess Rashaw, and this is why I love why people share their stories. Um, Even what she says of that just last week she lost a cousin to cancer, and this is helping her understand her cousin's experience. So, and that's why I think stories are important, right? Not only for somebody who may be dealing with it or another survivor need to know they're not alone, but also family members and friends. It helps them understand better. So I appreciate you both for coming, and Deaconess, thank you for sharing that as well. I think it's important. Well, you guys already knew your story was important, but that's just more evidence of just how powerful stories can be. And I hope that you both continue to go on and share your stories. And just so you know, like that example right there, how many people you're helping because you do. You know what I
Thank you.
mean? And even your family members who are watching and still have questions or know that you're strong and want to celebrate you because you do. So I think all that's important. And I'm telling you, you guys help me because I'm seeing things differently that I didn't even think about before, even when it comes to being a therapist and talking with people, speaking with people, and um, appreciation of life, all those things. So I appreciate you both for coming on here. Do you have any words you want to share before we log off with those watching now, those that will be watching later?
I think I'll just end on just what we were just speaking on, just advocating for yourself, being in tune with your body, being okay with what you know, um, being okay with articulating that to whoever your health professional is, and working with them, but not letting anybody kind of bully you into anything, because it's still what you know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. And again, just being
And
a team.
switch up doctors if need be, because I know, I'm sorry, Serena, but I changed oncologists because they weren't listening, they didn't listen to me, so yeah.
I e, I remember that also, Renisha. I remember having, when been in the military, often having to PCS to different places, and talking to one doctor, that oncologist, a young oncologist that was taking over for my previous doctor. And I sat there, and I said, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I started crying, and I said, "I think I'm gonna die." And I told him, I think I'm gonna die, not because of the illness, but because of the fact that I felt that I wasn't going to be heard and that they were going to overlook something. It was going to be something overlooked. It's very important. It's imperative that you have that there. And also, again, just having that mental health person there to help you because, again, to this day, the side effects from the chemo, I'm still having some of those problems that cause panic attacks and everything else. It's a chronic illness that can be helped.
Yeah. Well, I thank you both for sharing. I'm so glad that you are here to share your stories as survivors. You know, God, the Lord, God gets the glory. You know, out of the
Yes.
situation, and I know that you're blessing other people with your stories. So I thank you so much. And for those that are going to watch now or later, I know you're helping other people as well. And you should think more about those support groups that you could possibly start together or individually. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to, if you two can stay on here, I'm going to end the broadcast, but if you can stay on here, I want to talk to you for a second. But thank you everybody
Okay.
for watching. And make sure
Okay.
you share with somebody, family member, friend, another survivor, somebody currently going through that you know needs to hear this. All right, you all be blessed, and we'll be back on soon.
Okay.
Bye, y'all.